I broke up with my girlfriend because of the Barbie movie. A few days ago, I watched Barbie with my girlfriend. And in Barbie and Ken's seemingly trivial, fantastical world, I found a life-altering realization that compelled me to end a relationship that had spanned 2 years of my life. It wasn't an easy decision to make. She was my rock. Those first few months leading up to us being together was like a delicate dance as she was still healing from a past relationship. She was so unsure about being with me, probably for fear of repeating past mistakes. But she took the chance, and we grew together slowly. She even stopped talking to her ex after a year or so since they had been good friends, regardless of the relationship they had. But circumstances brought them back in contact when his mother was hospitalized. She was too afraid to tell me, scared it might upset me. And while I know there was no infidelity involved, the lack of communication hurt me. She immediately stopped speaking to him from that moment over a year ago and hasn't spoken to him since. As if that wasn't enough, 2 months after that incident her parents were actively pushing her into talks of marriage with a guy they favored. We had an understanding that she would tell me everything and keep her interactions with this guy to a bare minimum and keep it as dry as possible. But when I accidentally saw a 2-month-long snap streak with him on her phone, the old wounds were reopened. She thought she had already told me, but we both soon realized that she had completely forgotten about it. I know snap streaks seem like such a trivial issue, but in the grand scheme of things, it was pretty massive, considering the trials and tribulations we've both been through. I was left in a strange place, feeling as if I was constantly in the shadows of other men in her life, waiting for some level of openness that never really came. But through all of this, she remained my rock, my support. She was there for me during the grueling days of university, the job search, and everything else life threw at me. She was there for my family, always kind, always ready to help. Watching the Barbie movie was supposed to be an escape from reality, but it turned out to be the opposite. In Ken, I saw myself. He existed to serve Barbie. Without her, he felt empty and devoid of purpose. But throughout the movie, and after some unfortunate patriarchy, Barbie helps Ken discover his own worth and realizes he is not defined by Barbie, but rather, he is enough just being himself. And believe it or not, this realization shook me. I had been clinging to the comfort and support she provided, blind to the mounting issues. But I had to face the truth. I was enough. My worth wasn't tied to her, my happiness wasn't dependent on her validation. She is a wonderful person, truly, but we had issues that we couldn't resolve, issues that were hurting us both. And all I am Ryan Gosling jokes aside, I am like Ken, still searching for my purpose, my calling. But I know that I am enough. I'm not sure where I'll end up, but I have faith in the journey. She deserves the same chance to find her own way without the weight of my expectations or the shadows of her past. So, here I am, a guy who realized his worth after watching a Barbie movie. It's strange how life lessons can come from the most unexpected places. It's been a challenging period, but I'm grateful for the insight. I'm ready to face the world, as me, just me. I am enough. What did a close friend do to you that ruined the relationship forever? I was 17 at that time and had gone to attend one of my classmates' birthday party. It was an afternoon function and the party was sumptuous. Though we had our occasional differences, I was still on good terms with the birthday girl. Her dad is a very influential person in the hospitality industry and is a powerful rich businessman. He liked showing his wealth and he gifted her an Audi. Later that evening she insisted that I and 3 of her friends join her for a ride in her new car. I thought it would be rude if I declined her, so I reluctantly agreed. She was on the wheels and was a good driver. It had rained that afternoon, so it was a pleasant evening. We had rolled down our windows on her instructions. Now there was this couple going on their scooter with a young girl. She was around 6 to 7 and they looked like a below-average family trying hard to survive on their limited income. The little girl was wearing a white frock and her parents' clothes looked old. She was driving aggressively and we almost collided with their scooter. It barely missed. The uncle confronted us and told us to be careful. He was polite and in no way rude to us. It was our mistake and he was right to point it out. After all, the road doesn't belong to our fathers. I thought it had ended there, but I was mistaken. So now our princess took this as an offense and she followed them. There was a pothole filled with muddy water because of rain. She intentionally drove into that pothole, splashing the couple with muddy water. She hurriedly drove off before any more confrontation. I did manage to look back and could see their clothes were completely ruined. The little girl broke down in tears. I reckon it was her only new dress and we had ruined it. We had wiped out her smile and she was crying. I still remember her face, which made me cry. This was a couple who were barely surviving on minimum income. They would have saved every penny so that they could afford a new dress for their daughter. We not only ruined her dress but also their evening. And I was fuming, just waiting till we got back to her house. I wanted to confront her but felt it was not the right time. We reached her house and she got down from the car smiling. No remorse or regret on her face. It does not end here. She had the audacity to ask me about that incident. She thought I might admire her for that maneuver. I was not going to hold back anymore. I did let her know that she was nothing more than a vengeful bitch who deserves to rot in hell. I am not a racist, but I did make comments on her look. And I was harsh. And I have no regret in body shaming her. She broke down into tears and went in. I called up my driver to come and pick me up. We have crossed paths many times since then as we have a lot of mutual friends. It has almost been 5 years since that incident and we have had no conversations. I still hate her and I am sure she dislikes me as well. But there is someone out there who hates both of us even more. I am sure that little girl and her family would have still not forgotten about that evening when a few spoiled rich girls ruined their evening. Students who had creepy professors, when did things go south? What I would like you to do is wear hot pants, knee-high boots, a crop top, and roam through the professor's lounge during lunch and offer more coffee, tea, and water. This was my job description for a work-study job in my second year of college. For those that don't know, work-study is a job on campus that directly pays off a tiny bit of your tuition a little at a time. I really needed this job. The job I had the year before was in the admissions office, and through some weird turn of events which I never could identify, this woman wanted me around the professors and college faculty dressed like that. Serving them. Dressed like that. Yes, it was a woman that wanted this from me. I felt it was wrong and unacceptable, and yes, this was the late 1970s when that type of dress was popular fashion, but what she was trying to do was use me to get the faculty to eat at her new faculty lounge on campus. In those days, male professors outnumbered female professors 20-1. This was an engineering college and it was a private college. I accepted the job because I needed it, but there was no way I was going to show up dressed that way. I showed up and she immediately had me change into a more form-fitting uniform. It wasn't long before some of the less dignified tenured professors began making conversation and sexist innuendos. I overheard one say, "Finally, someone around who has decent boobs." I felt so ashamed. I felt so ashamed to be a young woman. I felt so ashamed that they only cared about my looks and not about the fact that I lived in a corner of someone's basement for housing and that I only ate once a day because I couldn't afford to eat more often. I felt ashamed that I didn't have the clothing the other girls had there who attended, and there weren't that many girls on this campus. I felt ashamed I was outnumbered there by men and it was a woman who seemed to be betraying me by using me for her advantage. I was young. I didn't know who to go to for help. I showed up every day and served the drinks. A few weeks after I started, one mathematics/economics professor became more and more enamored with me. I was very shy and never made eye contact, but that didn't matter. He asked my name and recognized my last name as the same as a student's in one of his classes. The student was my father, and they had become friends. Small world. Every day, I began to learn what it was like to be outnumbered in an age of sexism that had not yet begun to even start to change, and every day it seemed I had to fight to prove myself. And it was wearing on me. I was getting so tired of it. One weekend, I decided to spend the night with my parents and siblings in a nearby town. The professor who had become obsessed with me was trying to find me at my address, which he had found in the admissions office, but I wasn't home. He got drunk. By the way, this man was 55 years old and I was 18, and showed up at my parents' house banging on the door. My dad opened the door and at first was confused. Why was his professor here at his home? The professor saw me and began to yell, "There she is, I love your daughter, she means everything to me." My siblings and I began to cry because we were so scared and my dad was furious at this man for hunting me down. He called the police and the professor was arrested. I never went back to that job on campus and the weird thing is that no one even called to find out what happened to me and if I was even alive. It was then I made my decision. I changed my major from the pre-med curriculum the next semester and enrolled in teaching, simply because in teaching I would not be surrounded by men. I had made the connection between that episode, and many others I experienced on campus, and this constant battle was just too much for me. I was just not strong enough. I wish I could have fought the good fight then for the future of the rest of young women all around trying to pave their way into a male-dominated profession, but I had been too traumatized. And for that, I once again felt ashamed. I still feel shame in it. I ended up loving teaching and enjoyed every bit of it. I just wish I would have been stronger so I could have pursued my dream of becoming a doctor. This was my worst experience of being a student. My son passed away 2 weeks ago. His last words keep replaying in my head. My eldest son was 16. He was my wife's firstborn and I adopted him at the age of 7, making him my only son at the time. I loved him as much as my other 2 boys we had later. He was my best friend for so many years, but definitely started to back off in his teens where he just became standoffish and just a teenager, I guess. Anyway, on the 1st of April, his mom was heading to a town about 90 minutes away. He was awake and doing stuff around the house when she left around 10 a.m. I worked from home and was on a call until around 11:30 a.m. When I came out of the office I told him and his brother I was running to get us lunch. He kind of just nodded at me without saying much, which was normal. I got back to the house with the food around 12:20 p.m. He came out to grab his food but looked wobbly and his eyes were not focusing on me very well. He was also mumbling really low and sort of stumbled once. Immediately, because I am an idiot and an a-hole, I start asking him, "What are you on? Tell me what you took." And accusing him because it was so unlike his normal actions. He responded with nonsense answers. "I didn't steal anything, I bought at the computer store this morning, and then oh yeah, I'm going for a drive later if you want to come," or something like that. He was completely out of sorts. So I grabbed his wrist to check his pulse. It was rapid as hell, that's all I remember. I couldn't begin to tell you the rate. He allowed me to check his pulse, but yelled, "Why are you restraining me?" When I did it, I told his brother to stay in the living room and took him into his bedroom. I sat him on the bed and told him to show me what he took. I can be pretty hard on my boys, but I swear on my life I was not at this time. I told him a number of times, "I am not going to be pissed, I just need to see what you're on so I can tell if we're in trouble here, and just show me the pills, buddy. Just show them to me." And he finally points to a Walmart bag on the floor. He said, "Everything I stole is in there." So I open up and dump the bag on the floor. It was all his school supplies we just bought like the day before, nothing pill-like in there. I know he isn't a pill user, I knew he never really left the house all summer. Why am I accusing him like this? It clicked then, he's having a stroke. I called 911 and asked for EMS. As I was on the phone, I went back to him and demanded he smile at me. He was kind of laughing and gave me a big smile and his face wasn't drooping or anything. Then I said, "Okay buddy, raise your hands." He gave a ha-ha, then said, "Raise the roof," and lifted his arms. They didn't seem to be weak, but as he started to sit back down on the bed he kind of fell, so I grabbed his hand in the kind of clasp and he squeezed mine tightly. Then he said it. His last words were, "Oh my God." Why is he in our house? As he looked up over my shoulder, I know now he saw death coming and he was so effing scared. I grabbed his hand and told him repeatedly, "It's just me, buddy, it's daddy. I am here for you. It's just me. It's just your dad." I couldn't even think of any other words to say. I knew he was scared, and I just tried to ease it. I held his hand and he held mine as he had that first seizure. I was quick to put him in the recovery position after the convulsions stopped. The paramedics were so fast, like 3 minutes after my call my middle kid was letting them in the house. When they arrived he was still breathing and in the recovery position. I put him in with the first seizure. He ended up having several more right after the paramedics got there, and during one he quit breathing and his heart stopped pumping. They worked on him for a long time and we hauled to the hospital once they got the compression machine on him. And still, by 1:50 p.m., my eldest son was dead at 16. His mother left the house at 10 a.m. with her son happy and healthy, and the next time she saw him at 2 p.m. he had died. She can't forgive herself for not being there. I can't forgive myself for being unable to help him and for being such a dick as to accuse him of taking pills. The tox screen came back negative for everything other than a trace amount of painkiller, which according to the coroner wasn't enough to make him take a nap, much less take his life. I remembered later I'd given him half of an ibuprofen. I think it was for his shoulder the day before. His cause of death still shows pending on the certificate and we won't get a full report for several months. Not knowing how it all happened so fast and knowing his last words were ones of fear and terror have been messing me up for almost 2 weeks now. People who have catfished on dating apps. When did the meetup actually go well? I was on one of my Amsterdam trips. I was in my hotel room using Grindr one evening. For those who don't know, Grindr is a gay dating application which can be used to meet guys in your area, and it shows the distance the guy is from where you are. I was talking to a guy who was about 1 mile away from me at the time. I had decided that I wanted to go out to a bar and have a few drinks. After 30 minutes or so of chatting, I gave the guy my Dutch cell phone number and told him to contact me if he wants to meet. Then I left my hotel room. About 10 minutes later, while I'm in the tram, I received a call. It was him. He said he wanted to meet now. I agreed, since I was only 4 or 5 stops away from my hotel. I exited the tram, went to the other side of the tracks, and took a tram back to my hotel. We met in front of my hotel. We then went up to my room. We entered, kissed for a few seconds, and then he said, "I'm sorry, this won't work out." I said, "Okay." Then he left. I was angry, annoyed, and felt like my time and money I had to pay for the to and return trip by tram were wasted. I knew that he took one look at me and decided he wasn't attracted to me, despite the fact that I put my height and weight in a full body picture in my profile. I decided to test out my hypothesis. While still in the hotel using Wi-Fi, I took my other phone, downloaded Grindr, and made a fake profile. I called it Visiting Amsterdam, and I uploaded a picture of a conventionally attractive white guy and said in the profile that I was visiting Amsterdam for a week. I let it sit on Grindr for a while, left my hotel, and went to the bar. The next day, I decided to use the fake profile to target that guy who wasted my time. We talked a bit. And I told him that I was staying in a hotel which was a few hundred meters away from me but closer to him. We set a meetup time. He was telling the fake profile that he was at the hotel, and I was responding that I'm here in the lobby, and he said he couldn't find me. At that moment, I thought about going down and confronting him, but I was insanely scared. After a couple minutes of sitting there not replying, I decided to text him, "I'm coming down right now." When I walked down, he sat there in the lobby on the couch shocked. I walked up to him pissed. See how it feels to have your own time wasted? He didn't know what to say, but after a minute he told me this whole story about how his mother had gotten in a severe accident that night and that he just said it wasn't going to work out so he could leave immediately to go see her. I asked why he didn't just tell me the truth. It could have saved all of the BS that I did to get revenge. He told me that he just thought we would never see each other again, and he didn't want to have to explain something that I could have easily thought was a lie. It made sense when he said it, and eventually I apologized, him doing the same. We actually decided to get dinner and it went extremely well. That was 3 years ago and now we are married and are in the process of adopting our first baby. It's crazy to think that if I hadn't catfished him over my senseless urge for revenge, then I wouldn't be with him to this day. He still jokes around with me about it, saying things like, "You were way hotter in the profile pictures." While some might take that joke wrong, we have that kind of roasty humor so it doesn't bother me. This story is not some advertisement to just go around and start catfishing, but I just wanted to share a unique example of when it can work out.